little announcement. So just a few housekeeping rules. We'll begin shortly. There is a chat available for you throughout the event if you have any questions as you listen to Eleni and our contributors. It's for you, but there will be space of questions and answers for you at the very end. I would also like to ask you, everybody should be muted, but if you happen to unmute yourself during the event and you are not one of the speakers, can you please mute yourself so that we can make this an enjoyable experience for everyone? The background noises can be quite disturbing. The replay of the event will be in your inboxes tomorrow to enjoy. And with that, I would like to move straight to the program and introduce and welcome Eleni Cay, who Zuzana already talked about a bit. So Eleni is a Slovakia-born poet who lived both in England and is now living in Norway. And she's a very multi-talented and multifaceted woman, which is also reflected in the number of languages in which she writes, which includes Slovak, English, Spanish, Norwegian, and French. Her first book collection of poems, A Butterfly, was published internationally in Germany, in Slovakia, and in the UK. But aside from writing poems, Eleni is known for I just got myself stuck for beautiful sort of combinations of different kinds of art, especially for film poems and dance poems that have been featured at prestigious international events in the past year. She is the woman behind the book that we are celebrating and introducing to the world today, Slovakia in Poems, which you can purchase internationally. So we'll be including those links in the chat and in the email too. It's wonderful. It's not just a collection of poems, it's also visually very beautiful. Actually, each poem is complemented with an image. But right now, I would like to pass the word on to Eleni herself to share a little bit about her, about this project, about the book. So welcome, and thank you again, Eleni, for your work and for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Gabi and Zana, for being our publishers for the book. Very, very many thanks to the contributing poets, and of course, to all of you joining today. You cannot see it through the screen, but I have 38 fever right now, so I am a bit shaky. But I am very happy that I can be here and say a few words about the book. It was a huge privilege to edit it. It includes my favorite poets, but also poets who I think is correct to say are the most successful, most interesting contemporary British poets right now. And when I was thinking about this project, I thought about my dream list of people I would like to approach, and I was absolutely delighted when all of them said yes, when I asked them whether they would like to write a poem, thinking that they might have a connection to Slovakia. I think having multiple perspectives on one thing makes this thing bigger and more rich. And this is what has happened in this book. I believe that getting diverse perspectives from different poets has made Slovakia a bigger country, so to speak. My personal relationship with the country is complicated, and I think in the book we see different facets of Slovakia as well. We see how poets speak to its contemporary culture, but also in terms of their impressions when they visited Slovakia, what they liked, what they perhaps didn't like so much, and what resonated with them personally. As Gabi mentioned, the book is interwoven with various beautiful photographs, some of which we will be showing on the screen so you get a little bit of a taster. And now we are getting a bit of an interference in the back. I don't know what is the name of the person joining, but what I would perhaps also say is that I would invite you to read the poems as with an open mind so that you can see both the beauty and the complex set of relationships behind each beautiful image and each word, really. Because as poets, we so much care about every single individual detail, and this very much comes to fore with each poem in the book. I wanted to say the names of all the poets who contributed a poem, and it might be that some of them are in the audience, and if they are, please, if you would like to read your poem, do say so. There will be time for it in the second half. I know that Mark Chamberlain is in the audience and he will be reading his poem. We also have Robert Peake, who contributed a piece. So did John Glenday, Anne-Marie Fife, Cahal Dalat, Christina Thatcher, Catherine Davidson, Miranda Peake, James, who is with us and who will be saying a few words, Steve Fowle, Teresa Sowerby, Penny Sharman. Penny is joining us as well, I know, will be sharing a poem. Mark Neal, Tara Ragan, Matthew Paul, Ellen Baker, Matt Barnard, and Simon Baraclow. All poems have been translated to Slovakian, so the collection is bilingual, and the translation was provided by Marian Andričík, a really experienced translator, so I was delighted when he said yes. I think I will now pass the word to James to share his perspective and impressions about Slovakia and the book itself.
Thank you very much, Eleni. Can you all hear me? Because I had to unmute now, okay? All right, but I must thank Eleni just for all the good work she had put into her heart, her mind, everything went into this book, and her time, of course. And here she is with fever, suffering on antibiotics, as she called and as she wrote to me and said, I'm really hoping I could be there. I'm so glad to see you here. She really deserves an applause for all the work she's done. And I appreciate you very much, Eleni, for even inviting me in to do the foreword for the book. My background is a bit different in the sense that my parents were immigrants from Slovakia, from southeastern Slovakia, near Humene. And they brought 3 children over in the middle of the Depression. And in 1929, they came to America. And then I was born as one of 13 children. And we always had the joke always in the family because about 6 of us were born in December, so we always knew what my parents were doing in March. But it was a very close and endearing family. And it was always joy considering what they had left behind and what I had witnessed when I went back. As a young man, I was growing up reading so much of the Slovak literature that was there, the music, everything that we could indulge in as a family. But it was the going back. And I went there on the very day that we landed on the moon. And I know that in the foreword that I gave, I think I mentioned how it was a matter of celebration coming back there near Humene, near the Zemplinska Shirava, the great lake there, and Domasa, and all the great places, the Tatra Mountains. This was my neighborhood, when I came back. But I still remember being on the mountain with my relatives, my young relatives, and celebrating a Javanska, and pointing up to the moon and saying, do you realize that right now there are American astronauts walking on the moon? And they began to laugh. I mean, it was derisive laughter. They just laughed. And, oh, cousin James, Jakub, don't you understand? The Russians landed on the moon years ago. And then I realized the subjugation of culture, the mental subjugation, as well as the propaganda that had taken over this country. And from that point on, I became a very active dissident in writing against communist rule, occupation. I was there the night my Uchina and my Uchina and Uyets woke me in the middle of the night to tell me the Russians have invaded. Russia, I had no idea what they were talking about. They were packing my suitcases and everything, and into a buckboard with a dog leading us with I remember the lamps on the front of the buckboard down to the train station to get me out of the country, because I had already been writing against and I was banned even. This was in '69 and '68, and I still remember coming to the station and the the soldiers there, and seeing the tanks as I came down over the hill, and how locked me in a bathroom for what became about 8 hours. Because they had looked at my passport and knew I was American. They put me in the bathroom, and I still remember how I sat there as the train was moving through all parts of Slovakia to get out. And when we got to Bratislava, they ported us off the train into a bus, and all I could think of is we were going out to some field somewhere, and no one would ever hear about us again. And I kept saying, "Don't get on that bus! Don't get on that bus!" And I did. And as it turned out, they had deported us into Vienna, kicked us out over into Vienna. From that point on, I was going back to my villages. I won't talk much longer because I can answer questions later. But after that, I went back to my villages as often as I could. I was given a distinguished professorship at Prague University, Charles University in Prague, which gave me every summer the chance to go down and see all my family that were there. And ja nemôžem dobre po slovensky utvoriť, but ja môžem po východnársky utvoriť môj jazyk. And so I'm talking my východnársky dialect here. Václav Havel became a very good friend of mine, and he used to always joke with me about that, because I didn't learn Czech. I kept speaking in Slovak no matter where I was. But that was my heritage, and I'm proud of it. And I quote what Eleni said here when she did this book. She says she wanted to epitomize the open spirit of Slovakia. And what I thought was echoing to experience the country with all the senses in an authentic, personal way. And this is surely what all of you had done. All the writers who are in the book had done a beautiful job. I just went through this book and trying to write the foreword, and I couldn't help but I tried to talk about everybody. All right, I will get off. Let somebody else talk.
Thank you so much, James. We are privileged to have you as joining us today, but for writing the foreword, and your experience might resonate with some people on this call as well. And it's something that history books are talking about, but it's something that lives so profoundly in you and people you meet, and how you influence with your work others is fascinating, and I admire it very much. So it's a privilege for me. I don't have the copy of the book myself, and I believe yours hasn't arrived to LA yet either. But Penny has a copy, and Penny.
But I do have the proofs.
You have the proofs, yes.
Maybe
Me too.
Penny could show it to us actually, and Gabby could spotlight her video so we could see it.
Oh, that's beautiful.
She can wave it at the camera, and Penny, you can read your poem as well if you would like.
That's beautiful.
Gabby, can you spotlight Penny's video screen?
There we go.
Can you see it?
Yeah, and do you mind showing us also the inside?
Well, I can show you my poem,
Okay.
but I can show you.
And the photo, because we want to show that it's a visual book. So Eleni
Yeah.
made sure that every poem is not only translated into Slovak, but it's
I just
also
got to get
paired,
the right. Can you see that? The poppies.
yeah, paired with a beautiful visual representation. of
Yeah,
what it-
it's lovely. It's a real cool book. It really is lovely. So, do you want me to read my poem now? I feel a bit of a cheat, really, because I've not been to Slovakia, unfortunately. And I met Eleni quite a few years ago now in Manchester when she lived there. So my connection is with Eleni, and I feel very privileged to be in this book. So I did do some research and chose some of the nature aspects, and I chose the poppy. Sleep bringer. I found you in the botanical garden, far from your native landscapes, white petticoats, paper petals, tall and strong, purple center of mountain ranges. I heard your giant rattle heads, song of tiny white seeds, hill lover, peace flower, shade of pure white. I tasted you on the crust, sweet, nutty oil. I think you're safe. I'll pretend you're not addictive. Moon potion, bedtime chutney. Send me dreams from Hecate, goddess of flower lore. I bow down. Bring me my dream time from your white skirts and lavender stories. Show me your dance from the fields of wind. Feed me your memory of wild, freedom to bloom. Give me your blessed drug of small seeds. Thanks very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Actually, if I could ask a question to Eleni. So how did you involve Penny in the project? And what was your purpose behind creating this book? Like, you asked foreign poets to speak or to share their interpretations of Slovakia via poetry. So how did that come about?
I think the idea, that's a good question. I think the idea came pretty much towards the beginning when I started living in the UK, and I saw some remarkable synergies in the way some people thought about Slovakia. And I thought it will be nice if we can capture those thoughts in a poetic form. And I became involved in the poetry circles in Manchester, as Penny mentioned, and in London. Met the poets who are included in the collection, had a conversation with them. And gradually the idea that was very abstract became more concrete. I wasn't sure at the beginning how to make the idea into something specific, but then it occurred to me that it would be lovely if the various poets I knew could be brought together in one book with their own poems. So when that idea matured, I began approaching poets, and they began writing, and that took some years. Then they sent their poems, and it took some time thinking about how to pull all those poems together. Then it took some years to translate them. And then the visuals and thinking about the photographs, and finally to bring it into this book form. So it was a project across several years. That's probably why we are so excited to see the actual product. And I know that Mark Chamberlain has the book in his hands as well, and can read his poem as well. So maybe we could invite him now to read. Mark, yes.
Sure, yeah, thank you, Eleni. And Well, likewise, I just feel really honoured to be invited by you, Eleni, and Global Slovakia to contribute to this, particularly because I have no familial connection with Slovakia and had only not visited until 2018, when I spent some time travelling through the east of the country. I came down from Poland, from Warsaw, travelled around, stopped in Kozice, and then went on to Hungary after that. And Kozice, for anyone who doesn't know, maybe everyone does, but if anyone doesn't, it's the second biggest city in Slovakia after Bratislava. And one of the things that struck me about Kozice was how it seemed to simultaneously hold its history, its present and its future all on equal footing. So the past, including the scars of the past and the difficulties of the past, were remembered, but there's also at the same time a real sort of vibrant, youthful, creative, optimistic energy to the people in the city there. And so that's what I tried to capture, something of that in the poem, Kozice. Wild poppies pushed to the sun through a miasma of building dust. Oil freight arrived from the eastern lowland, smarting heat on the banks of the Hornad. In town on the Hlavna, honey tea, staff skipping between cafe tables, the spires of St. Elizabeth, students, love. A faded plaque on a yellow wall reads, "In memories of the fighters of fascism who were hanged on this street in January 45. Behind a sliding screen at the station, Doxy Roxy, Tippo's scratch cards, the Pravda. On the window of the Cosmetica, a graffiti artist's tag, blue, febrile, brilliant." Thank you.
You can't hear us clapping, but we were clapping. Thank you.
Beautiful poem as well, Mark. Thank you so much. I don't know if there are other poets who contributed to the collection and who would like to read their poem. If so, please do let us know. You are very welcome to. But otherwise, Zana, I think we are finished with our presentation. So, oh, there is Catherine Davidson. Oh, that is just wonderful. Catherine, if you would like to read your poem. And
I was going to suggest that Catherine read.
yes.
Thank you so much. I'm so delighted to be here, and it's just so amazing for me to be connected to James in California. And here I am in London. It's before dinner time. Eleni, it's our first time I've met you in person, but we've talked so much online, and you're just as beautiful in real life as you are in the virtual world and through your voice. And I'm so grateful for all of this. And this is a short poem, which is actually in some ways inspired by James. And it's about learning to write poetry. I feel very lucky that he was my teacher and mentor for so many years. And he introduced me to the idea of world poetry, which seems so apropos for what we're doing here tonight, all over the world, in this one space together. And it's called Learning to Write Poetry. I was 10 the first time, handed a pen, paper, dawn in the Mojave, walking in silence. The monks led us in a file to an oasis. A rattlesnake lettered itself over the sand. Given permission, the world cracked open, pink sky singing, an egg-shaped bell broken. At 12, my grandfather of commerce, unschooled reader, book lover, strike breaker, soft-spoken tamer of women, cars, and horses, offered me gifted Walt Whitman, shirt parted, eyes like a token, his bridge over the cosmos as inviting and simple as a girl's first passion. At 15, I entered into the life of the body, lines under fingernails, muddy and stinking, men, a foreign tongue I longed to master, scent leading me into the underworld undrowned. I fell for a dead Greek among other seducers. Each time a word pierced me, I was done over. A decade on, together in a room for hours, the brilliant teacher and his acolytes, up late in the bar, a Slovak who shouldered worlds, said, we should live poetry, but what did I know? Poems walked through me and out the door on their way to other cities and other chances. Nights during the years of children, I woke, stood at the landing looking at the moon, or in the car watched a plane split the sky. Poetry, a lost sense of something swallowed, pebbles thrown into water. I followed traces, all other faiths deserting me, this remaining a cedar only I can see, evergreen, verdant, breaking the bare ground of my disunions. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. So everyone is clapping as well. Thank you so much for that beautiful poem, Catherine. And if I can just ask you a little bit about this, did you get involved in this project and later know that James was going to join, or?
Well, I was contacted by Eleni. I think we met each other through the Poetry Worlds online, and I actually was very much wanted to involve James, because as soon as I understood this was going to be an anthology of Slovak poetry, I'm who is the great Slovak American poet for me. So I put them in touch, and I was a match made in heaven.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Thank you. Thank
So
you.
I was very delighted to be the initial bridge for that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, James is absolutely like an icon in Slovak American poetry. So it's wonderful that he joined this project and that Eleni got him on board and that he wrote the foreword for it. In fact, James, I would like to ask you, if you don't mind, to read just like a section of your foreword for us, if you feel comfortable.
Sure, absolutely. I think what I will do is the last part of it, because this is how I felt about the poets who had contributed. I wrote, in these pages, we celebrate poetry's testament to the beauty and personality of a nation in the purest daily expression of its cultural identity. The poets affirm the legacy of globalization of the arts, where borders and boundaries can be crossed freely to foster multiculturalism, the true inspiration at the core of this anthology. Their poems remind us of a responsibility as artists to strive to achieve through communication a moral bond between races and tongues, and to see ourselves as global citizens with an unwavering vision that poetry, like all the arts, will cross borders and time, inspiring a common share in the moral compass of an enlightened world. And then to that ideal, I believe the book, The Heart Sings Out to Nurture a Passion for Living, for Loving, for Learning, and for believing in a future based on universal truths to which citizens of all generations might aspire.
Wow, beautiful.
And the poets in this book did exactly what I try to describe. Crossed borders and gave us absolute truths and universal truths. And it was just, and the beauty of the different art that was alongside, the photographs, the paintings, whatever was there, and the matches that were taken. I really congratulate Eleni for having that concept involved in the book as well.
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
thank you, Catherine, for the reading. She's the one that put us together with Eleni.
Yes, I mean, as an someone in the audience, I can say it's incredibly soothing to the soul to listen to your narrations, to your poems. Um, so I'm sure I speak for everyone on this call, and I really recommend you guys to support Eleni and to support these poets by purchasing the book. It is available on Amazon in the US if you're joining us from America. It's available on Amazon in the UK if you're joining us from the United Kingdom. And if you're joining us from Europe, it's available on the book depository. We actually have links in the chat, but we will be sending a follow-up email with all those links for you so you can purchase this. And I really recommend not just getting this for yourself, but also to get it for friends, family, and loved ones, because this really is a heritage project. I think that will just continue to grow. I mean, we're here this evening here in Slovakia, morning in the United States, releasing or birthing this book officially through this baptism, but we really feel that there's nothing like this on the market, you know, and especially the fact that the poems have been compiled by foreigners interpreting Slovakia, like Penny, for example. I really enjoyed your poem because I'm such a fan of poppy seeds and poppy seed culture and everything it means to Slovaks and the Slavs. I really appreciate how well you captured the essence of that in your poem. So thank you very much, Penny, for that.
Yes, thank you from me too. It's not just a book. There's so many emotions in those words and in those images. And I would like to share just a few more of the photos because just to do justice to the visual component of the book, which is as breathtaking as the photos themselves, and together they really work in powerful unison. And while I'm doing that, please feel free to ask questions. Don't be shy. We have always wonderful poets with us.
I have a question. I have a
Yes.
question to kick it off. So Eleni, what is this image, if you could describe it to us, because it's absolutely breathtaking. The one before, Gabby, sorry.
That's beautiful.
So I wanted to say a bit more about the images. The photographer should not rename nameless. Her name is Ivana Stigova. I believe extremely talented photographer, mostly of Slovakian landscape, but you can see that many of the photos also capture the people and the cities in motion. And I think really epitomize how Slovakia has been changing and yet remains traditional. So I'm not completely sure whether this particular photo is included or whether the ones that follow are, but she worked hard in making sure that there is this, I think as one of you mentioned, that there is this nice blending of image and word, and that they complement and each other. And to me, this photo, when she showed it to me, that to me was an award-winning photo. That's why I said this must be on the cover. So this is really her talent, that she sees details where some of us might not see them, and that tell a story. The photos speak for themselves and need time for processing and reflection. So Ivana Stigova is her name, and yeah, I think I mentioned the other contributors.
And what, for example, could you tell us more about this image?
It might be from northern Slovakia. So I was born in Martin in northern Slovakia. I think you hear a bit of a dog barking.
Yes, I'm making my way through the attendance to mute.
Yeah, so this might be from northern Slovakia. I was born there in Martin. So the Turčianska záhradka, the mountain range there, creates a sort of a garden around the Martin city, which is quite unique in Europe. High mountains and yet this nice enclosure, almost holding the city as in a heart. Those of you who enjoy hiking and are fond of nature will definitely find Slovakia a good destination to explore in all seasons. This must be probably the beginning of winter, or perhaps towards the end of the winter. Some snow on the mountains.
If I could just join in, I just returned today from Liptov, from the Niske Tatry, the Low Tatras, and it certainly looks very similar also to the mountain peaks there exactly at this time. So we're transitioning from fall into winter slowly. So it's a really breathtaking image that truly captures the essence of the mood and the scenery and the nature right now that you see in the north of the country.
So at this stage, if anyone has questions, please feel free to unmute yourselves and ask. So it's a wonderful opportunity to get in touch with all these people who feel so much for Slovakia. Some of them have been there, some of them haven't, but the pull was strong enough for them to write a poem to contribute to this incredible anthology. So please don't be shy, ask.
Okay, if no one asks, I have another question actually also for both James and Eleni. I was wondering, so when is your next collaborative project together?
I'm smiling.
Let her respond.
Yeah, I'm smiling and James is smiling, and we might leave it at the smiles, Anna. These things happen organically, you know. Even this book was very much an organic process over the years that has been growing on layers, a bit like, you know, when you unpeel an onion and there are many more layers underneath, even though you didn't realize there are many other layers. That's how I felt, how this book has been growing.
So, I should also add that Parodic magazine from India had asked me to curate what they wanted were 7 Slovak poets and 7 Czech poets, and I included Eleni as one of the poets to be included in the anthology, which should be coming out.
That's a very good point, James. That's the
so we've already collaborated because she did some beautiful work.
Yes.
But just seeing those hills, you know, I say my being called back every year to the villages to see all my aunts and uncles who are still alive, and to know the topography, the beautiful topography, the mountains and the hills, and to have the Tatar Mountains only about an hour drive away from where the villages were, and the streams coming through. Even the poem that I included in this book, Javanska, it was because we were celebrating, you know, what Janoschek used to do, and that was on the run. He was always making his quick foods, and that was called the Javanska. And in doing that poem, it was a way to capture the spirit of a country. And using my father, who became our Janoschek, my own father, who I brought back to Slovakia after 40 years, you know, brought them back. So.
Eleni, what, if I can ask you, what is your vision for this book? So you've spent years, you know, delicately putting it together, using your vast network of poetic contacts from the United Kingdom and beyond. Now it's been birthed, it's on the global platforms. What's your vision for it?
I think, as with other book projects, you hope that once they are born, just like children, they can stand on their own legs later on and walk, so to speak, on their own. So now the book is out in the world, and it's up to the world to make it live and make it for the world to experience it in all its colors. I hope, and my vision perhaps for the book is to reach readers beyond Slovakia, but also within Slovakia, so that they get the multiple perspectives on Slovakia from British poets, and engage both with the linguistic aspect, the translations, with the visual, and then of course the deep content that was captured in the poems.
Mhm, mhm. And actually, speaking of this book's appeal in Slovakia, we have a great question here from Paul. If Paul, if you don't mind to just jump online and ask it.
Sure. Since so many poems involve rhymes, how do you translate them from one language to another without losing their impact?
I think that's an excellent question, Paul. Thank you. I myself don't see myself as a translator, even though I write in both languages and speak in both languages, because I see poetry translation as an art form in itself. So I was delighted when Professor Marian Andričík said yes to the translation, because I knew he could really do justice to the poems and to the languages. So often when you can't find a perfect rhyme, you have to find another word. And then you need to know how that word resonates in the different contexts and whether you still keep the message of the poet. And you mustn't write the poem in your own words. You need to really honor what the poet said or wanted to say. So it's a very difficult job. And it's never perfect, a translation, but it's probably as close as we can get to the original.
A quick follow-up. Would you get a chance to review after the translation to sort of work with the translator to make sure that your meaning is kept intact?
It was, in this case, this is what I was trying to do. So I worked with Andre to ensure that we do not lose a lot in the translation. But it also happens that if the poet himself or herself speaks the language that their poems are being translated to, then that often happens that you have a collaboration with the translator. But it varies. Sometimes translators don't want to get their job to get any interference, and they prefer to just work on their own, and they see their own product as their baby. So it depends on who you work with.
You know, I could add to that. You know, I've been translated into 15 languages, and everyone asks that question. I'm so honored that my poetry is in that other language. I never interfere. I never interfere.
Perhaps you're so successful.
I'm sorry.
Because no, I just wanted to say perhaps that's the secret to your success. Also, you have this trust and you just allow it, you know. And
I had to translate a 250-page book of Yevtushenko, the Russian poet, and I had to translate and co-edit that. And I always looked at that as just what Eleni said, you know, the poet has birthed the book and the publishers give it clothes and put it out into the world. And in a sense, the translator is doing the same. You know, you really stay as close as you can to what the artist intended. And you don't try to impose your own view or your own images. You try to do it. And sometimes the rhymes just will be slant rhymes. They won't be perfect rhymes, but they'll be slant or imperfect. And you work those in, you find a way to do it, but it's a chore.
And James, if I may ask, are you working on any projects Slovakia related at the moment?
Well, yeah, I'm doing. They've translated my book, The Hunger Wall, Hladová zeď, into Slovak. So we're going to try to get a publisher for that, and then put that out. And it's just the other thing that I did was a film screenplay. I've also worked on a lot of films, and did a screenplay that includes Slovakia and Czech Republic called The Shoe, that's going to be out for possible filming soon. So, but I finished a new book called Nothing Disappears, and there's some good Slovak poems again in there. So it's another book, my 11th book.
And Slovak characters, I hope.
Oh yes, oh yeah, absolutely. Because the whole country at the time was Czechoslovakia that endured the invasion, and so that's the backdrop of the film, The Shoe, and so it has both
Mhm.
Thank
Wonderful.
you. And I actually have a question for Eleni, as a Slovak who has been living abroad for so many years. You know, how do you feel about the country being removed from it? Because this is the situation in which many of those who joining us today are in. You know, they feel so strongly for the country, yet they're currently can't go. So they're far away. So what's, you know, how are you feeling about Slovakia when you are away?
I suppose bittersweet. You know, it's a feeling of losing home twice. I think they say, you know, that once you move, that you are not home there any longer, and even when you come back, you don't feel that this is home. You create home in your own heart with people who you are with. So to me, Slovakia is, I probably wouldn't say home, but it is the country that I associate with home, because many people I love, my family, they live there, and when I travel to be with them. There are so many facets to your question that I won't attempt to answer them in 1 minute, but I would say it's a complex relationship. It's I both see the beauty of Slovakia. I also recognize the difficult political situation. I see the wisdom of many people in Slovakia, but I also see how many people in Slovakia are not necessarily promoting ideas that I agree with. So it's a complex relationship. But one thing that is absolutely a huge positive to me is the tradition of Slovakia and the gorgeous nature that I absolutely adore and miss very much.
Can I add to that? Because what you just said is so beautiful from my point of view as well. I still remember being in Jomena, being called into the library when my book, The Hunger Wall, was banned, and the librarian taking the book off the shelf, asking, "What is this doing here?" I had no idea. My cousin or somebody might have put it on. She took scissors out and scissored out 4 poems out of the book. One that I had dedicated to Jan Palek, another one to Dubček, and that was what I knew. And so when I had a chance on a Fulbright professorship in Slovenia to go back to my villages, they asked me if I would take 10 Time magazines and 10 Newsweeks in. So I smuggled it in under a false bottom of the suitcase. You should have, and I was doing a Samizdat reading in Bratislava, you should have seen the poets and writers grabbing for truth, grabbing for these magazines. And that's what keeps you alive as someone who's not in the country. It keeps you alive. It keeps you constantly with the voice trying to make sure that people remember. And this is what all the poets did here. They found some way to give life to what the country stands for, so many of us who have that heritage. But when you endure what most people had to go through, not just me, I was on a small level, people whispering, communism is no good, communism is no good. And they wouldn't dare talk because they didn't know which relative would turn them in. That was another period of time that I endured. So the beauty of the country always comes back. The beauty of the people, the hearts of the people comes back always.
And Eleni, can I ask you, since you were speaking of giving life and you gave this book life, would you like to read your poem?
Oh, I don't have it here with me. I think I might include the poem maybe in the follow-up email.
Okay.
There is a nice recording of it as a video that shows, it's about the castle Čachtice.
Mm-hmm.
And the video shows some images from Čachtice as well. So maybe that will be a better experience for people than my rough voice right now.
Since you can't read it, but can you tell us why Čachtice is so special to you?
That poem is about the Bátory legend. So there was this legend about young virgins being killed near Chachtice, because there was this old belief that if you use their young blood, you become beautiful. So in the poem, I talk about beauty not being made of blood.
Perfect.
Very nice. Gabby, can I actually invite you to talk about the Slovak Soul pendant as we end off this book launch?
Yes, and I would like to, because we had a few more people join us, and I realized this is because there has been a confusion. We didn't realize, I know time in Slovakia changed to winter time a week ago, but in the US it only happened yesterday. So there's so there has been that, you know, the issue of that 1 hour difference. So if you're only joining us now and you're finding out that the event is about to finish, we're very sorry. But the whole launch was recorded, so you will have access to the replay and you can enjoy it in your own time. And we're very happy that we are all now on the same time, so this kind of issue will not repeat in the future. And we thank you so much for understanding and for your patience with us these last few weeks. And before we close off, there was so much said about you know, Slovakia, how to connect with it, how we miss it when we are not in it. And it's for this reason that we created a very unique product. It's a pendant that is filled with the soil from Slovakia, and not any old soil. We took soil from the sacred valley of Marianka, which is an oldest pilgrimage site in Slovakia, where generations upon generations of men and women, our ancestors, have been coming to pray and ask for healing and ask for advice. We created this because we felt that ourselves, when we move away from Slovakia, what we miss the most is the land, is the soil, because that has nourished, you know, generations before us. That's what's interwoven into our culture, into our folklore. We spoke about the beauty of Slovakia, nature of Slovakia today, and that's all kind of encoded in this little pendant, in that special soil. So if you would like to get yours, we make them ourselves here in Slovakia, so they're handmade. Each and every one of them is unique and honest and sealed with a lot of love and respect for Slovakia. We will include the link for this in the follow-up email as well, and you can now get free shipping on that worldwide. It also makes a beautiful present for Christmas, for yourself, for your loved ones, for multiple generations of those who are connected to Slovakia.
In fact, it's actually a beautiful combination to, unfortunately, we don't ship them together, but to order the book and this pendant as a gift for Christmas. To anyone that misses home, or to a loved one that you want to share a piece of Slovakia with. This was our idea because it manifested in the pendant form, but originally we wanted to find a way to get Slovak soil to the Slovak diaspora across the world, but mostly in the United States, where the largest one is concentrated. But there are a lot of complications also having to do with health and customs and safety of transporting soil. It needs to go through a certain regulation process that is very costly. It's actually popular. It's a popular endeavor for the Irish community, who use Irish soil, or through 3 handfuls of Irish soil in funerals. So this wasn't possible. We weren't able to export Slovak soil, so we found another avenue to get it out there, to get it out to the Slovak communities, and it's in this pendant form. And indeed, Gabby makes them all by hand. I go to Marianka to source the soil. I actually get it from that sacred valley, from behind the iconography of the Virgin Mary, where people have been coming for millennia to pray for healing and blessings and guidance. So it is very, very special soil, and it is sourced with lots of love and respect for Slovakia, and as a means, when we wear it, as a means to connect with Slovakia. It's very, very beautiful. I don't know, Gabby, if you're wearing it, that you could show it. You don't
I'm
have it
not
on
at the
the
moment, I'm sorry, but Zuzana is. So yes, it's a beautiful jewelry piece, but it's meaningful. So it's so much more than that. And in that soil, you really feel the beauty of Slovakia that is also captured in the book that we're baptizing today, and in the many stunning images that the book contains that really make you want to visit Slovakia soon, hop on the plane and travel. But if you can, there are other ways to connect with the country in the meantime. And as Zuzana said, both the book and the pendant make a lovely, a very authentic present for Christmas or all year round. So if you don't have any Christmas ideas yet, here are two. We certainly will be getting those to people that we love.
And very good news here. Oh, another beautiful image from the book. Eleni has kindly added the link to her poem that she talked about, Royal Beauty. So I hope that when we end this webinar, which will be ending soon, if there's no more questions, you guys can actually enjoy her voice and her reading her own words on the YouTube link in the chat, which I'm actually opening right now.
Thank you so much, Sana, and thank you so much, Gabi, and very, very many thanks to everyone joining tonight, and again to the poets. What a very nice book launch we had. I'm deeply grateful.
And
So
we thank you,
say,
Eleni, for joining us and for doing this despite your fever. No, we very much appreciate and value that, and I'm sure everybody on the call has been really grateful for your presence and for this book too. So thank you, and we hope that you get well soon.
Thanks, and good night or good morning. Greetings to everyone. Thank you.
And lastly, a special thank you to our guests, James, Mark, Catherine, Penny, and of course you, Eleni, for sharing with us your time and your wisdom and your soothing poetry. I feel very soothed. I can just transition into having a nice chamomile tea and going into a beautiful dream state. So thank you.
So thank you everyone. And once again, the replay will be available soon.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you to Eleni again.
Hello.
And to the publishers. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Hello, James. Hello.
Hello. Hey, how are you?
Hi. Okay.
Good to see you.
So virtual meetings of special kind. So thank you very much. We wish you
Oh,
a
that
good
was my
day.
cousin who joined in. That was my cousin from Slovakia, Bratislava.
Dobrý večer, Štefan.
Dobrý večer.
Ďakujem. Dobrý večer.
Hej, som vás sledovala, že či vy ste tiež písali niečo v knihe, alebo ste to prekladali. Som si vás všimla, že nie ste obvyklá tvár.
Ja som čiste priateľ Jamesa.
Aha, tak vítajte.
Aj trochu príbuzný.
Ešte lepšie. Nech to je všetko v krvi. Dobre, tak dobrú noc, krásny večer.
Good night, good day, goodbye, see you soon.